Welcome back to the Jacob Wayne Show. Starting off early on a Monday. Sipping on some Dr. Zevia. And just got done cooking up some salmon and some scrambled eggs. So I got a little bit of that like post-munching tiredness, but I wasn't planning on going that long today anyway, since it's Monday. I got plenty of days to do a full episode. But I figured I'd hop on and be like, yay, July 4th, happy Independence Day or whatever. And then came across a headline. There was a shooting today. Happy July 4th, everybody. What's more American than that? Let's see, where's the article? It was a parade in Chicago or something like that. Hold on a second. So this is just after I barely pulled it up. This came up 3 minutes ago. Police find man suspected in shooting at Chicago area parade. 22-year-old man identified as a person of interest in a shooting during an Independence Day parade in suburban Chicago that killed at least 6 people, wounded at least 30, and sent hundreds of people fleeing. And they were also taken into custody Monday evening following an hours-long manhunt. Let me see if there's anything else in here worth mentioning, but it's fucking ridiculous. I am a pretty pro-gun dude, but there's so much you could do that should be totally fine regulation-wise that would help cut down on all this crazy bullshit. I don't think anybody's interested in coming and taking away all your guns, motherfuckers. Like, but fucking something. Jesus Christ. I won't get on a soapbox about any of this, but all I will say is that it's kind of sad, and I'm not making this up. A couple days ago, I was like, oh, July 4th. That's coming up. I bet you there's going to be a shooting on that day, just with the way things have been going lately. Like, there's a meme that's going around, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I can't really totally remember it, but it's something about reacting to the downfall of America and just how you're just callous to it now. You're like, oh, there's a shooting on July 4th. Anyways, I wonder what's on Netflix later. Like, we're really in the thick of that. So much crazy shit going on that it is really hard to like put the exact same heft of emotion and care every time it happens. And it's a weird feeling because in your heart of hearts and in your logical mind, you're like, this is fucking horrendous and we need to do something about it. But oh yeah, my brain has gotten used to this. Like, it doesn't have this visceral, stunning effect that it used to have, I guess, which is just really sad. And I mean, that exists throughout our politics. It's like why people are disincentivized to vote because they think their votes don't matter, but that's not how voting works. It's not like you get exactly what you prefer every time you vote. And even if you did have the candidate you really preferred, maybe most of the country doesn't and they lose. I don't know. Despite all of this, I consider myself a patriotic person. I would never say I'm proud to be an American because it seems like a weird thing to be proud about. It's a George Carlin bit that's very great about that. It's basically, pride cometh before the fall. You're like accidentally were born here as an American. That's an odd thing to be proud about. Just being proud of something you have no control over. You could be happy to be American. I am happy to be American most of the time. But yeah, I'm not even kidding. I ponder that sometimes. I'm like, what's the line where the direction America's going and the where I want to be in my life? Do I maybe want to live somewhere else? And that's kind of a sad thing to think about because at one point, and probably to many people, it still is like America's the melting pot. It's the place to go and, start fresh, pursue your dreams, pursue the happiness, all that stuff. And more and more, it's hard to buy into all of that. And I mean, that was always some form of propaganda to keep the people in line anyways. We know that, but I think we strive for it. And on some level, we believe in that, and we believe in that for the world, that the world should be free to pursue what they want and have choice and say in those that run the country, and keeping it that they work for us, that not that we work for them. uh anyway, rest in peace to the victims, and hopefully there's actual action that can be taken to reduce this. And one tiny little thing I got to point out happened in Chicago. I almost guarantee you guns rights activists, mostly this is like NRA fucking bullshit. Like I said, I'm pretty pro gun, and I know plenty of gun owning liberals and Democrats and conservatives that want reasonable legislation passed to get this under control. But I almost guarantee you the NRA is going to come out like, see, Chicago, they have some of the strictest gun laws in the nation. And that was always like a interesting point that I would always hear. And I knew how I felt, they knew how they felt, so I just wouldn't think about it too hard. But then I came across a pretty interesting video where they pointed out that I'm going to map right here that let's see here. I'm going to actually look a little closer because I don't know that section of the country too well. Yeah, Chicago, really close to the border of Wisconsin and Indiana. And I can't speak for Wisconsin because it wasn't what they were talking about in the video I came across. I wish I could remember the source. I think it was those little now clips that pop up on Facebook. Definitely has a bit of a liberal bias, but I mean, the stuff in the video is pretty straightforward. Is that the reason there is so much gun violence and so much, gun access in Chicago is because Indiana has one of the most liberal, not liberal, I guess that's not the word I want to use. More, basically, you can go get a gun extremely easily. Let's just go with that. And to get it across the border is not that difficult. And so anytime you hear an NRA type say, well, Chicago's the murder capital of the world, remember what I said here. Look up proper sources for this information. I'm sure it's there. And just so essentially what you're saying, this is what you could say to your NRA friend. Yeah, you could say, you're saying that the murder rates in Chicago are bad, even though they have some of the most restrictive gun laws in the nation, meaning that the states they're surrounded by have such easy access to guns that you're making an argument that we should have more federal restriction on availability of guns, because then the policy would be the same in every state in the nation. Do I think major gun legislation is going to happen that actually exists on a federal level? I'm going to keep voting for people that would like to do something sensible. I am not the type that says that everybody should hand in their guns like other nations. I do think is a bit of culture to it, that this is part of the nation's culture. And I think you can be a gun owner that simply wants to have fairly destructive guns for entertainment and going to gun ranges and shooting them. There's a lot of room there to adjust things. And it is really scary how it is mostly these young, disenfranchised, incel-y white boys that are doing all these shootings. 22-year-old man. First of all, I would be like 22-year-old woman. Like, what? There's that. And then, it's not exclusive to white people. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I think we're all getting used to these shooters being people that believe in that replacement theory or some other fucked up far right bullshit. Far right terrorism in our country. January 6th. These are the times we live in, motherfuckers. So all I can say is, if you're listening to this and you're even more pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment than me, or you consider yourself Republican or conservative, write in and tell me what you think a way forward is, because I'll tell you now, if you are listening and you still are pro-Trump over the Democratic Party, or you I don't know, even if you even still consider yourself a Republican, I have a hard time even listening to you, because both sides aren't just the same. There's a shit ton of work that needs to be done with Democrats, and we need to get rid of neoliberals like the Hillary types and the Manchin types in West Virginia, Cinema in Arizona, if I remember correctly, if that's where she's from. There's tons to be done to reform the Democratic Party. And I wish we could have more parties in this country. We need more than just a third. We need like 4 or 5. Because if we only have that third party, it only just becomes that weird way to siphon off votes from the middle or independents. And then you get the worst candidate in the election between two evils or whatever, There's a lot of work to be done, no matter what angle you lean towards. But I think we could all agree we want to preserve our democracy and our right to choose. How about that? I meant that about voting, but see, that's the weird ass time we're in. There's things that are conservative policy that I think a lot of people would be surprised how much they'd be behind it if the party actually meant it and implemented it, and B, it's just, oh, you're a liberal, so you wouldn't like that. I don't think that's true. There's plenty of gun-owning liberals I know, plenty of liberals that don't think the government should have a big role in spending, and that should be left up to the markets. And, obviously these are the left-leaning libertarians you might know. And I used to think I was libertarian, and then I'm way more into federal programs than a libertarian would ever feel comfortable with. So I just can't identify with it. But, as I would say to my friends, my opinion has adjusted on Ron Paul over the years, but I think we all kind of wanted to have a debate between Ron Paul and Bernie Sanders and try to find compromise between those two or where those two stand. And I think that's almost like the confusion for people that are like just hardcore Democrat or hardcore Republican. They look at the people that voted for Ron Paul, and then in the next election were willing to go for Bernie Sanders. They went from a libertarian to a socialist. They're like, how could you? It's like those two clearly care about the country and calling bullshit on what the country's doing wrong. And they want to fix it, I feel. Rand Paul fucking sucks. He's a piece of shit. And I've always wondered, like, apparently Ron Paul and Rand Paul don't really get along, which makes sense. And I always like picture, it's like, man, if you were like a politician that was really trying to change some things in this country, and then your son gets into politics and he's just like a corporate shill, hateful little weasel, that would suck. Anyways, sorry for the political rant, but hey, it's my Independence Day and I'll rant if I want to. Rant if I want to. Nah. I will say that, having lived in China for a year, I'm pretty happy that I could sit here and have a podcast that I'm going to throw up where I can rant like this. I think you get what I'm saying. No need to explain that. Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk to you the next day I record. Ta-ta! Friday. Hey, it's Friday, and I have not listened to any new music releases, so I'm going to have to listen to those after I record this segment to give you a more informed music section for this week's episode of the Jacob Wayne Show. So what I'm going to do with this segment right now, while I sweat my ass off, is do some bad news, good news, while I sip on some grape Zevia. Oh, man. Been cutting back on the drinking lately, and these things are a lifesaver. LaCroix, Kroger's like seltzer waters. They're good, but this stuff is where it's at. It's a little taste, crispy treat that beer is, and I'm just trying to drink less of because I'm doing the calorie counting. Started doing 11, man. All right, so started doing at least 7,500 steps a day and 10,000 when you can. Last 2 days I've done like over 11,000 because I was doing a little bit of work for a friend and then walking home from that. And that's about 4.1 miles, which is, a little bit over 10,000 steps. And then, just regular walking around. It's added up. So I did that in the middle of the afternoon today. So lots of sweating, lots of redness. So I apologize if my brain's a little foggy, and of course I'm going to do this segment while my brain's foggy, but hey, if you ain't used to that by now on the Jacob Wayne Show, I don't know why you're listening. So let's get into some bad news, good news. Bad news. Good news. Bad news. Good news. All righty. I'm going to start by reading a couple headlines from a kind of a newsletter I get in my email that is not a sponsor, but I do enjoy it. It's called the Morning Brew or Morning Brew. Does a little bit of stock news and market information, as well as just some basic headlines, and you get it daily in your email. I like it. I need to click this right here to remain a subscriber because I haven't, checked in that I'm still reading these, which is kind of nice though, that they're like, hey, I don't know if you're still watching, so if you're not, we're going to stop emailing this. So markets are up. I'm not an economist though, so I'm not going to even attempt to explain any of that stuff or act like I know what it really means. So we're going to move right along to some geopolitics. Now, this is crazy. This was yesterday, but I was a little too tired from the work I was doing. Shinzo Abe was assassinated. I don't think he was declared dead until today. But if you don't know who that is Japan's influential former prime minister, Shinzo Abe. And he was shot while giving a campaign speech on Friday. It's kind of a shocking event in a country that I think has single-digit gun deaths on a yearly basis. And the dude who shot him built the gun himself. So that is kind of a little different from our weekly shootings here in the US, eh? Well, number one. So what happened? Minutes into his speech in the western Japanese city of Nara, Abe was shot twice from about 10 feet away. The 67-year-old collapsed and showed no vital signs as he was airlifted to the hospital. Current Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said the shooting was barbaric and malicious and cannot be tolerated. I mean, yeah, I agree. I don't know any other way to really put it. Yeah, the suspect is Tetsuya Yamagami. He was taken into custody at the scene, and it appeared he was using a double-barreled gun that he made himself. So there was that. But then in other world leader news, Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, has resigned. He said, them's the breaks, as he announced he'll step down following the mass resignation of about half of his government this week. So it's not really that he wanted to, it's just everybody in his government was like, fuck you, dude. There were some memes going around like even this cat quits the UK government or some other stuff like that. Like everybody's quitting. So I'm trying to see here what the reasoning was for this recent spat. I honestly haven't been paying that much attention. It says here he's been plagued by scandals and his misleading responses to them. He'll remain caretaker prime minister until the party, not the voters, selects a new boss. Potential contenders to replace Johnson include former chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, foreign secretary Liz Truss, and NBA fans are going to love this, defense secretary Ben Wallace. That's the kind of biting humor you get from Morning Brew. Yeah, some people were saying that oh man, what country was it? Somebody responding, they didn't even live in the UK, but they were talking about how their prime minister in their country resigned, but basically sat around until it was almost time for the election anyways. So it was more like a symbolic resignation. He's like, until we can replace me, I'm gonna have to just, stay here to make sure things run smoothly. So hopefully it's not one of those bullshit kind of things going on here for Boris Johnson. And my personal take is that Boris Johnson was in a lot of ways kind of like the British Trump. So it's nice to see that the UK has classed us up once again, and even the British Trump is willing to admit when he's lost and is willing to resign. And, that's my opportunity to say fuck Donald Trump for this episode. Mark that right over here. All right. The Musk Twitter deal is in serious jeopardy. And as I'm reading that headline, I think Elon Musk has said he's going to pull out of the deal. All I will say is it was a $44 billion agreement and it affected a lot of people's jobs. And more, Elon Musk is just proving to be a total douchebag. So fuck him. And hopefully he has to pay some kind of fine for playing games like that. because yeah, CEOs thinking they can do whatever they want. Fuck that shit. With that, in government, I guess Comey and McCabe IRS audits are under Booth review. They were both audited during the Trump administration, and I guess the odds of them both being audited are 1 in 30,600. And so I guess that's being looked into as another corrupt thing that Donald Trump did. So I'm going to take this as opportunity number 2 to say, fuck Donald Trump. I'll mark that over. No. Okay. Let's see if there's any other news bits from that. Nope. So I'm going to bounce over to some good news. On NPR, they have reported that one woman dominated the awards at a Virginia county fair. Then the internet went wild. Why do they gotta add that to the headline? Just say one woman dominated the awards at the Virginia county fair. Show the picture. Deep in Southwest Virginia, there's a county fair where last month one woman won first, second, and third place for best cookies. She also swept all 3 awards for candy and for savory bread. In fact, she won the blue ribbon for cake, pie, brownie, sweetbread, and best overall baked good. That was strawberry fudge, I guess. And it didn't stop there. She also won for canned tomatoes, canned corn, pickled peppers, sauerkraut, relish, spaghetti sauce, and both jelly and jam. And then she took top honors in quilt embroidery. And after the Virginia Kentucky District Fair posted these utterly dominating results to Facebook in June, you guessed it, she went viral. I'm gonna play this. Hopefully the audio comes through.
Have you heard of Linda Skeens? In the kitchen, she a queen. VA District Fair, she a blue ribbon machine, yeah. Won about every prize at the festival.
Yeah. That was Jordan Keys. It's Keys on TikTok doing the Ballad of Linda Skeens, the most dominant county fair baker of all time. So she's like basically the GOAT county fair baker, and that to me is just really impressive. And as a recent foodie, I think I've been turning into a foodie a bit. I've always loved food, but learned to appreciate cooking and all that a lot more. Most what's her name again? Sorry about the delay. I think her name is Linda Skeens. Skeens' granddaughter saw that and reached out, and using that name, Mousette tracked down a phone number for Linda herself and said, "You do realize that everyone on the internet wants you to cook for them," Mousette told her. "Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, they want you to cook it all for them." Skeens' reply was, "I'm busy cooking for my family, motherfucker." All right, I added the motherfucker. But yeah, that's a positive news story, and just what a way to dominate. Good job, Keen. Let's double check that's her name. Linda Skeens, not Keen. Skeens. All right. I'm gonna see if I can break this one down kind of quick. It's a long article. This is on technologyreview.com, and it intrigued me. It's called Smart Cities. Toronto wants to kill the smart city forever. The city wants to get right what Sidewalk Labs got so wrong. I don't know what Sidewalk Labs is, but in February, the city of Toronto announced plans for a new development along its waterfront. They read like a wish list for any passionate urbanist. 800 affordable apartments, a 2-acre forest, a rooftop farm, a new arts venue focused on Indigenous culture, and a pledge to be zero carbon. All good things, in my opinion. The idea of an affordable off-the-grid Eden in the heart of the city sounds great, but there was an entirely different urban utopia planned for this same 12-acre plot known as Quayside just a few years ago. It was going to be the place where Sidewalk Labs, the urban innovation arm of Alphabet, was going to prove out its vision for the smart city. Sandwiched between the elevated Gardiner Expressway and Lake Ontario, and occupied by a few one-story commercial buildings and a mothballed grain silo, Quayside shouldn't have been that hard to develop, but controversy ensued almost from the moment in October 2017 that Waterfront Toronto, a governmental agency overseeing the redevelopment of 2,000 acres along the lakeshore, announced that Sidewalk had submitted the winning proposal. Sidewalk's big idea was flashy new tech. This unassuming section of Toronto was going to become a hub for an optimized urban experience featuring robo-taxis, heated sidewalks, autonomous garbage collection, and an extensive digital layer to monitor everything from street crossing to park bench usage. Had it succeeded, Quayside could have been a proof of concept establishing a new development model for cities everywhere. It could have demonstrated that the sensor-laden smart city model embraced in China and the Persian Gulf, not a good sign for authoritarianism, has a place in more, does this have a place in more democratic societies? Instead, Sidewalk Labs' 2.5-year struggle to build a neighborhood from the internet up, as they say, failed to make the case for why anyone might want to live in it. Then Sidewalk pulled the plug in May 2020. The unprecedented economic uncertainty brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, but that economic uncertainty came at the tail end of years of public controversy over its 900 million vision for a data-rich city within the city. Let's see here. This quote, I guess, kind of sums it up pretty well. The shift signaled by the new plan, with its emphasis on wind and rain and birds and bees rather than data, seems like a pragmatic response to a present moment. In the US, it's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, says Alex Ryan, a senior vice president of partnership solutions for the Mars Discovery District, a Toronto nonprofit founded by a consortium of public and private funders and billed as North America's largest urban innovation hub. In Canada, it's peace, order, and good government. Canadians don't expect the private sector to come in and save us from government because we have high trust in government. With its very top-down approach, Sidewalk failed to comprehend Toronto's civic culture. Almost every person I spoke with about the project used the word hubris or arrogance to describe the company's attitude. Some people use both. This is the opinion part of the article, the end of the smart city. Time and time again, we convince ourselves that the big idea of the moment will not only improve our daily lives, but cure society's ills. In England, the Garden City movement, introduced by the urban planner Ebenezer Howard in 1898, aimed to merge the countryside and the city while avoiding the disadvantages presented by both. The American version, the City Beautiful, sought to return beauty and grandeur to cities as a path to a more harmonious social order. Le Corbusier's rigid high-density plan for the never-built Villa Radius, Radiant City? Villa Radius in Paris pursued urban utopia through architectural discipline. More recently, the 15-minute city is a global movement in favor of planning cities so that everyone has access to work, school, retail, and recreation within a 15-minute walk or bike ride. Yeah, it goes on for a while, but in general, I mean, I couldn't agree more. The integration of all our technologies is inevitable to me, and I embrace it. I mean, the fact that you can watch me doing this podcast on your phone while tracking the steps you take while you're walking to do your workout, and then also pay your bills, is pretty cool. And also being able to use your phone to scan a little scooter and just ride it for about 2 blocks and then leave it there. And the company knows where to come pick up their scooter. Those little things are pretty great. But clearly with climate change and things like that, I mean, in general, I think the simplest way to put it is cities got to have less sprawl. Humanity in general needs to have less sprawl. let nature reclaim a lot of space, and cities need to tighten up and go vertical. You can do vertical hydroponic farms, gardens all over your buildings. Hopefully, that would be affordable housing for the common citizen. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not one of those. There's part of me that would like to live off the grid up in the mountains somewhere and nobody can bother me and I'm in nature. And that's the artist painter part of me that just wants to disconnect. But at the end of the day, I am a city person, I think. And it would be nice to have like a taste of nature and I don't know, kind of more a small community vibe within a city where a lot of people are living. There are tastes of that in the cities of Vancouver and Seattle where I've been. I've traveled a fair amount. I wouldn't say I've traveled a lot compared to some people, but I mean, there's clearly been some cities that have embraced this concept on a smaller scale. And I think you can have technological integration, but it shouldn't be like this giant meta internet 2.0 smack in the face billboard kind of concept for a city. Like, we need to technologically grow while tapping back into the fundamental natures of our species, which to me is very similar to a bonobo or a chimpanzee. It would be nice if we move away from this grind mindset and get back into munch on a fruit that we picked from a tree, and you and your friends can sit on a hillside and daydream. I think that's just as important as coming home, getting on your computer, doing a bunch of data entry, and then playing an MMO with your buddies. And that's the future I envision. And that's why I am a dirty commie. Now you might be wondering, like, oh, no, dirty commie. I'm just talking Star Trek. I think I've mentioned that on this podcast before. If there was a Star Trek party and the whole point of it was to get to what society is in Star Trek to a certain degree, that's my party. I want science, innovation, the basic needs of humanity fulfilled by government or perhaps technology, maybe both. And beyond that, do what you want, do what you please, just don't hurt anybody. That's also why every time I take one of those political alignment tests, I always end up being like a socialist libertarian. It is a thing. That theory of thought came up around the same time that capitalism and communism did. So, look it up, do your research, but seriously, do your research. Libertarian socialism, you might be more into it than you realize. Or take one of those political spectrum tests and then see how close you get to me, and maybe we can compromise, I'll tell you one thing, though. I'm not compromising with the likes of Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, all these Elon Musk I mentioned earlier, all these fucking bullshit pieces of shit that act like they're intelligent. Oh, the both sides just as bad. It's crazy. It's like, no, there's some annoying shit on the left and a lot of like authoritarian white Christian nationalists on the right. And it's fucking scary and it needs to go away. And I was having this conversation with a buddy the other day where it's like, it is kind of hard to get that across to some people, where there's plenty of Christians in my life I love, Mormons in my life I love, some Muslims in my life I love, but Islam, any type of Christianity, Mormonism, they can all fucking crash and burn as institutions. And I wish humanity would grow beyond thinking that those are like legitimate ways to view the universe and spirituality and society. But I mean, hope in one hand, right? All right, with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up for today and just relax, rub my knees, uh, have another Zevia, maybe even have a beer because it is Friday. I don't know. But with that, I will see you in the next segment, which will most likely be music. So that's it for Bad News, Good News, and recording on Friday, July 8th. Ta-ta! Music talking. Music talking. Music talking. Well, I think that's shorter than the last music thing, but I was up late last night drinking some beer because it's the motherfucking weekend. Doing a little bit less drinking tonight, but having a fat tire while I record this section. And yeah, I had a lot of fun making that and kind of toying around with some mixing stuff today to like make it sound a little bit nicer for you. But excuse me. Oh no, I ruined the whole thing. Nah, I'm sure we're all right. Let's just get into some talking music talking. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not quite sure what to actually call this segment other than talking music. Then it's gonna go on to chatting movies. This week, there's definitely a couple things to mention. No new news about Gamma, just the same stuff I've already mentioned recently. I'll talk more about shows as they come up. Kellen hasn't let me know about any particularly large dates or events to let you know about, so nothing on that front. So we'll just get into some new releases. I didn't see any major. Oh, there was one bit of major news, but maybe I mentioned it last week. I'm trying to remember. Carlos Santana collapsed on stage. He's recovering now, and he said some lovely things about God when he recovered. Or like, man, I should have pulled that up beforehand, but he was essentially saying is like when you get that close to God, you realize how much all of this isn't something you should stress about, I believe was the gist of it, which, yeah, I agree with that. Maybe wouldn't, do the whole God thing, but anyway, I wish him a speedy recovery because I think a lot of people my age tend to think of Santana as the guy that did the Smooth song, like "Be right on there, keep it real, don't forget about it." That song, but he's way more than that. I would say go listen to Santana's first 3 records, and then you'll have a deeper appreciation of what a great musician he is and great guitar player, very innovative. He's definitely top 5 for me. Carlos Santana, that fella. I don't get into a lot of his newer stuff like I do the older stuff. which is always like kind of the great debate, right? Jimi Hendrix, I would probably say on every area considered, and then put it down into one, like who's your favorite guitar player, technicality, innovation, how much you actually enjoy the music, etc. Jimi Hendrix is probably my favorite, and you wonder, would he be as innovative or as great today? I like to think so. But yeah, maybe people would just be like, new Jimi Hendrix record, whatever. It's the fact that he passed away so young that his career is so finite that it just hits that much harder. Similar to a Nirvana thing, definitely not anywhere near my favorite guitar player. I do like his guitar playing. But yeah, it's like, would he just be doing like kind of poppy acoustic weird stuff now, or would he maintain something? Would he have really innovated and come up with something we would have never expected from him, like a Radiohead type? I don't know. I kind of doubt it with him, but maybe he'd be like a all MAGA, like the System of a Down drummer. He lived too long. Not the System. Anyway, we'll move on. I feel like this episode over the week has been really Trumpy because that kind of shit's been pissing me off this week. So it's bleeding through, I guess. But let's get into new releases. One new album from an artist I've never listened to that I was intrigued by the first track, and it was suggested on Pitchfork to go listen to the album. So there's that. Whether you trust them as a source or not is up to you. But the artist is Wooloo. That's WWU LU, and his new album Loggerhead. He is, I believe, London based. You can definitely hear an accent with his rap style, and I don't know what it is. I have a hard time getting into a like a UK accent in rap. I don't know what it is. Something about that accent in rap, like it's my ear funny. I love the accent in film and day-to-day life, and like pretty much everywhere else. Somehow in rap it gets on my nerves. It's interesting. It's an interesting thing to me. But that being said, this is the first time I've really listened to it and been like, okay, maybe this is my doorway in, and I'll appreciate some of the other great rappers that are over in the UK that I know are doing some pretty great innovative stuff. It just comes down to a taste thing. But yeah, the first track, Take Stage, Loggerhead by Wooloo. Good stuff. Let's take a look at some other releases. Let's make sure we follow him. Where'd you go? I had you pulled up, then I was listening to Wooloo. There's a new track by Talk Talk, that 80s band that did the song It's My Life, Don't You Forget. But that No Doubt covered. And the news track sounded very 80s, which was kind of surprising. A lot of 80s bands that had that 80s sound, especially the new wave thing, make music now, they can't quite recapture it. And I would say, at least on that track, felt very 80s, and they knew how to tap back into it. So go check out some new Talk Talk if you want. Pussifer released 2 remixes of songs from their recent album, and I haven't listened to the underwhelming Reimagine by James Iha, but there's another one, Bullet Train to Iowa, reimagined by Billy Howardell, which I have mentioned on the podcast before. And if you don't remember, that is the guitar player from A Perfect Circle. So essentially, the guitar player from A Perfect Circle, which is also a Maynard James Keenan band, coming in here remixing a Pussifer track. Listen to that. It's pretty tasty. Nothing that like blew my mind, but I'm like, yep, that's some good stuff. This is Spotify's new releases for me. They told me to listen to this Dirt Wire with Black Lodge Singers. And if you don't know Dirt Wire, let's take a look see here. What are they all about? They are described as a traveler's collage of earth-born instruments and electronic sounds, foraged from electric forests to the mountains of Tuva, from their home on the west coast of the United States to far-flung destinations all over the world. So they're kind of like moody, hippie electronic music. Pretty good stuff, though. I will say it's a little backgroundy. It's good for if you're like cleaning the house or at work or, yeah, doing a little bit of remote work on your computer at home. Pretty good stuff. There's a remix, Beats Antique and Too Many Zoos. I'm not sure whose track it is that's being remixed. I think it might be Too Many Zoos remixing Beats Antique. I only got a tiny little taste of that one, but I like both those acts. Too Many Zoos is that you might have seen the video go around. It was viral. It's the dudes in like the subway, just like like really Borat-y, but really danceable saxophone street performers. So that mixed with an electronic act like Beats Antique, who have collaborated with like the likes of Les Claypool. I'm pretty intrigued and we'll give it a deeper listen as time goes on. Mars Volta released a new single, Graveyard Love. I liked this one more than the other song, but having heard this song, it contextualized the other new single and makes me pretty excited for a full album release. I'm hoping that's what this is, not just a EP or a couple singles, you know. Yeah, Graveyard Love. It has like a lot of electronic kind of pulsing Stranger Things-esque type beat to it, but with Mars Volta, like it's definitely Mars Volta first and foremost. And so yeah, Graveyard Love, Black Light Shine, good stuff. I've been enjoying the kind of minimalist artwork they've had for both of these too. It's kind of like black background with golds, kind of line art, maybe be a way to put that. One on Black Sunshine, the art's like almost looks like one of those captured sound wave images, kind of stylized. And then this one, Graveyard Love, looks kind of like barcodes. They've always had really great artwork, so I'm excited for that. That might have been my favorite new release of the week. There's a new track from The Who. They're that Mongolian crossover rock band that I think is, maybe it's just not for me, but it's getting a little stale, starting to feel a little gimmicky. Obviously, they're very talented in a very particular thing. So maybe it's just something I'm not that into, but they're still a band I would love to see live, and maybe it would help contextualize some of the stuff I've come across and been mediocre on. But there's a song called Forces of Victory by Gogol Bordello, which is clearly about the Ukraine war. I'm not sure what the official title we're giving it. The Russian government is a bunch of assholes war, something like that. I don't know. But the artwork is just some of these musicians collaborating with him in the golden, yellow, and blue of the Ukraine flag, Forces of Victory. I gave it a listen while I was walking today, and it's good, but once again, kind of not really my style. I have a hard time getting into Gogol Bordello, but he's like somebody I really respect. No. Gogol Bordello, some of his earlier albums, like Start wearing purple, start wearing purple for me now. That song might just be called Purple. That album that came off of, which I can't really remember, I won't bother looking up, was really good. When I worked at the White Owl in Logan, Utah, the bar, throw that album on, be cooking in the kitchen, good stuff. I think that Dirt Wire I mentioned earlier would also be really good for a cooking environment. Probably Too Many Zoos and Beats Antique as well. We'll move right along. There's a new track from Killer Mike. I'm not sure if this is for a album or just kind of a single, but it's a collaboration with Young Thug. It's called Run. They released a really well-produced music video for this single, and has an opening from Dave Chappelle, which is pretty good. And it's not in the track, I don't believe. So that's kind of actually unfortunate because I think it sets the song up really well. But I also get why it's not in the actual track. I really like the beat. The bass on it is just lovely. And it's not really grabbing me lyrically. I'm not quite sure what it is. I was looking at comments on the video, and most people are like, wow, this is incredible, amazing, exactly what I needed today. So I can hear that in the song. So don't get me wrong, I think it's pretty good, but I just have high expectations for Killer Mike. And I don't know, some of the lines felt like they were trying to catch up with the beat a little, or like, I don't know, like the phrasing, word choice thing was just hitting my ear weird a little. And one person, anyway, yeah, one person in the comment for the video mentioned that it felt like a drawn out chorus. Like it wasn't a lot of really killer bars. It was just a chorus that like is kind of builds on itself and it doesn't necessarily go a lot of places. Which kind of, I think, yeah, the some lines felt like they were trying to catch up with the beat. Some of the word choices, not a lot of acrobatics with the rapping, so which I don't think the song calls for that. But yeah, I was a little underwhelmed considering the Dave Chappelle Killer Mike connection, but you know, maybe it'll grow on me because I definitely really love the beat and the bass on it. Moving on. Moving on. Once again, if you haven't watched the podcast Dudesy, you absolutely should. I am very jealous that they get to do that podcast, but I wouldn't want it any other way with who's doing it. Will Sasso and Chad Coltrane. Coltrane. I want to call it Coltrane. I'm trying to learn that guy's name. I know Will Sasso for years, so that's why it's easy for me to remember that one. But yeah, go listen to Dudesy. Anyway, moving on. There is a new release from Halsey, who might be my current like pop singer artist that I'm into and I can enjoy. I know a lot of that has to do with the album she did with Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. Excuse me. But she released a record live from Webster Hall. I'm excited to dive into that and see if I like some of the songs that aren't on that Trent album. But so anyway, Hopeless Fountain Kingdom live from Webster Hall. I'm gonna give that a listen. And with that, that is all the music news and stuff for this week's episode. I might record tomorrow, but I haven't watched a lot of movies this week. Don't think I'm going to be watching one tonight or tomorrow at any point. Let's see if I can actually knock that out right now. We'll double check. I don't think I watched anything really that stood out. Oh, okay. I did watch a movie, and quick shout out. I watched The Mist. Here, let's do the little thing while I can sip my beer a little bit, and then we'll just jump into the movie section. It'll be partial today and then whatever tomorrow, or just a trailer reaction I did. So here we go. Well, all right. So Chattin Movies, The Mist, directed by Frank Darabont. He's the guy that did the first season of The Walking Dead. He also directed the classic, which wasn't a classic when it was released, didn't do that well, was Shawshank Redemption. And he also did The Green Mile. So he's one of my favorite adapters of Stephen King material. And I had not read the book before this movie was made, but I remember going to the theater with my buddy Steve, and I loved the movie when I saw it, and I thought it was going to be like a big deal. And apparently it's pretty mixed. Some people love it, some people don't like it at all. It was released in 2007. Quick premise is, after a violent storm, a dense cloud of mist envelops a small Maine town, trapping artist David Drayton and his 5-year-old son in a local grocery store with other people. They soon discover that the mist conceals deadly horrors that threaten their lives and, worse, their sanity. What it also doesn't reveal in that plot, that the real monsters in this film are the people. And I think that this movie is a really great metaphor in that way, and that's why I love it so much. Is that this is coming out in 2007, so 6 years after 9/11, and yeah, 9/11's getting a little bit further away, and it is interesting to go back to around that, pretty much that decade, I guess, and think about all the films that came out that were talking about society and what catastrophe and terror does to a society. And honestly, I think where culture and society is at now is a mutation of a reaction of 9/11. What that did to our culture and our country is, I couldn't possibly be understated, and has had a huge effect that still ripples through everything. And but in this film in particular, the mist comes through, you can barely see like 1 foot out of the window without it just being a total cloud of mist, and there's creatures in the mist that are incredibly creepy and deadly, and kind of what's the word I'm looking for, Lovecraftian. They're kind of like unknowable creatures in the mist that you just don't know, and that's the whole Lovecraftian thing, I guess. But obviously that's creepy and that's scary, but the way that the small little ecosystem of society in that grocery store starts to devolve and fall apart into religious zealotry and people splitting into groups and fighting, and they don't hit it too hard on the head, but they talk a little bit about racial distrust, almost a little bit. I feel like they touch on that, where the main character and the other, I think he's played by Toby Jones. Let's see if we can see that real quick. No, it is not Toby. No, Toby Jones is awesome in this movie, though. He's the store clerk. He's also the scientist in Captain America. Like, yeah, great actor. Anyway, I'm getting off the point. The main thing is that there's an argument. The main character and this neighbor of his have a history and they don't get along, and the main character is a white dude, this other character is a black dude, and at the beginning of the film they start to kind of reconcile a little bit and like kind of get on the same page in the wake of this really bad storm. But as the mist comes through hours later and um they're in the store trapped together, then some of that distrust of each other starts to surface again. And yeah, I feel like that is a little bit of a commentary on like when society starts to fall apart, you start to blame the other somebody that's different than you. And the only reason that this is that bad is probably because of what you were doing and what you blah, 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 blah. And I just think that this film, by the time that your main character and some of his friends decide to leave the store, I think they did a pretty good job of being like, yeah, let's see what's going on in that murderous mist. I fuck these people. And I don't know, I think it's really great. But let's look at some of these quick reviews, and we'll kind of, get an idea of what people think of it. And yeah, it's all over the place. There's a lot of 3.5 stars, 2.5 stars. I was gonna read, yeah, let's read this guy. The 2.5 stars guy. This is a review by Cinematic, but Addict. Cinema DDICT. Cinematic. The Mist has an entire middle plot about the horrors of what happens to a group of scared people, and it's the least compelling part of the movie. It's not done with any subtlety. Everyone is a caricature, and Marcia Gay Harden overplays her role as the Old Testament spewing nutcase to such a degree that any scene with her is grating. The best scenes are the one right as the mist is starting and the part in the pharmacy. Other than that, there's not much I enjoyed. Even the shocking ending was seemingly for shock's sake. Very watchable, just not that enjoyable. But I think he's saying the same thing I am. Yeah, that's the point of the movie to me, is it is very, very Jungian archetypes and very specific types of characters that are exaggerated a bit. Although I would argue that if something like this happened, you'd be amazed at how much people would slip into archetypes and caricature, like absurdity almost. And he mentions Marcia Gay Harden in this, who I think does a really good job of being a really hateable fucking character. Total Bible thumping Old Testament type, wants blood for atonement, so on and so forth. But he says the best scenes are the one right as the mist is starting, which I agree is a great scene. But then he says the part in the pharmacy, which is actually one of my least favorite scenes. Not that it's bad, it's just it kind of is evolving into like, we're in a scary room, we gotta get out of here, bye. And that's just a little less interesting to me. He does mention the ending though, which I didn't get to, which did change from the short story that Stephen King wrote. I like the movie's ending better than the book's ending, but I like both endings. And spoiler alert, in the book, they kind of just, if I remember correctly, they kind of just keep going through the mist, and it's left up to the reader. It's like maybe they make it out, maybe they don't, but I don't know. You got to just kind of keep going, which is pretty solid. I kind of like it. In this movie, they're going down this road seeing all this horrible, atrocious stuff, and they're losing hope as they go down this road, and then they eventually run out of gas, and they have a gun and only 4 bullets, and there's 5 people in the vehicle, one of which is the main character's son. And through this entire movie, you've been given example after example of why you would rather shoot yourself in the head than go out and get murdered by one of these things. It's just a matter of how bad is your death going to be. So he takes the 4 bullets and he shoots the 4 people, yeah, including his own son. And then, you know, he even has a moment where he's like out of bullets, but still tries to pull the trigger on himself. Like, because he just killed his friends and his only son. And just, he had just seen his wife like up in a web thing, consumed by these creatures from the mist. It's like, yeah, it all makes sense to me. But like, as soon as he gets out of the vehicle to just kind of like come and get me kind of thing, he notices the mist starting to clear, and then the army is coming through, which this was all the army's fault, by the way, or the US government. And they come through and they're cleaning up their mess. And if he had just waited a little bit longer, they would have all survived. And I think that what that says is, when I put it back on American society, post 9/11, post tragedy, is it's like the people that end up doing worse things because they just can't handle the dark road they're on. And if they just held on a little bit longer, things were going to work out for them. And just even thinking about that and the parallels to our society and the choices some people make, thinking that this is the end, this is over, it's all done, it's game over, man. I can't help but just be really hit with the weight of the ending of this movie and the implications, because just hold on. If you're on a dark road, you don't got to make those kinds of drastic decisions until you really have to make them. They could have waited a day, something. I don't know. And then here's a review by Seth Cole, 1 star. This movie is so bad, WTF. Fuck you, Seth Cole. That's right. No, excuse me. But I will say there is, I'll give something to that 2.5 star review. The caricatures are sometimes a bit on the nose, which keeps me from giving the movie a full 5 stars. I have it as a 4.5. And I had it at a 4.5 from other times I'd already watched it, and I was watching it again for the first time in a long time, and I was like, maybe it's 4 stars halfway through. But then it came back, went back up to 4.5. I love the movie, but yeah, there's just enough little things in it that it's not a perfect movie for me. Anyway, look at that. I got a pretty long review of The Mist out of this week's episode. And so right here, we'll transition to my trailer reaction. And y'all have a good week. Enjoy that. Ta-ta! Hey, so I haven't done a trailer reaction in a while. I put up a clip recently of me having like a half-ass learning the software again reaction to the new Hocus Pocus. Yeah, Hocus Pocus 2. So now we're officially going to take a look-see at the Clerks 3 official trailer. So hopefully the audio is all good with this. We'll double check. Obviously, I got to record to kind of figure that out. I guess I could have tested it, but fuck it, we're here. If it doesn't sound totally right, we'll get it right on the next trailer. I just don't want to redo it if the volume's off and then have a less honest first impression. So let's go ahead and watch this trailer. Clerks 3.
That's how we did it in the 90s, son!
Can't catch my breath, man.
Really? Should I try mouth stuff?
What is this, a Tinder date? Get off of me. Oh, shit.
Mr. Dante! I need an ambulance at the quick stop!
Saved my life, man. Wish I had a life worth saving.
What are you talking about?
Sit around and watch the same movies over and over.
I always thought you could have made a cool movie.
You're right. I'm living on borrowed time. No more watching movies.
I'm gonna make a movie!
What's the movie gonna be about?
It's about him working here.
Meta.
Everything in the script is something either me or someone I know said.
I'm not even supposed to be here today. Maybe Jay and Silent Bob could be characters.
Jay and Silent Bob are like C-3PO and R2-D2. They've been here since the first movie, which was the last time they were cool. But they've been with the franchise so long, they still give them cameos and put them on the lunch boxes.
Snifty Booches! Please tell me why!
All right, I'm gonna pause it for just a second. Not only because I've is that the proper thing to do on these reaction videos? I don't know. Yeah, everybody's looking pretty old. It's making me feel really old. I will say the premise has a heart attack, probably a reaction to Kevin Smith having a heart issue. Man, I think a few years ago now. And yeah, just like every other movie these days, seems like they got to get a little meta, but you know, Kevin Smith is one to always be kind of meta, so I don't really blame him for it. It's a commentary on the state of movies as it is, have the characters about his first movie wanting to make the first movie. I like it. It works.
They believe in you.
You should put in that stuff you used to say about the Death Star contractors.
Get sued by Disney? No way.
Now that's what I call acting!
Take off your pants!
What the hell is this?
I added a scene where you get shot.
I'm not letting you kill me off in the third act. What if there's a sequel?
A sequel? What am I, a hack?
I think it needs more weed.
Yeah. I'll watch it. I enjoyed the first Clerks, not as much as some other Kevin Smith movies, actually. I like Clerks 2 more than Clerks 1. I remember really enjoying Clerks 2. Ever since Clerks 2 came out, I feel like I've kind of fallen off the Kevin Smith bandwagon a little bit. Yeah. Man, I can't even remember. Like, didn't they did like a third movie in the Jay and Silent Bob thing? Now I can't even really fully remember it. Or no, yeah, I guess it would have been a sequel because it would have been a sequel to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. See you at the next trailer reaction. Thank you for listening to The Jacob Wayne Show. If you would like to contact us, please write us at fakoshka@gmail.com. That is FAKOSHKA@gmail.com. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Simply search The Jacob Wayne Show and it should pop right up. Make sure you like and subscribe and leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. Please write us. It helps add content to the show and makes the show even better for you, the listener. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome to the